Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Working in Europe versus Working in the USA, what no one talks about. Okay, this seems to be very interesting. I think they have very different work cultures, and I don't know, I'm excited to learn about differences. So let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
Hey there, fellow travelers, or should I say fellow worker abroaders? Mark here with Walter's World, and today what I'll talk about are some of the differences that Americans notice when they come to work in Europe. Because a lot of people, their dream is, I'm going to move to Europe, I'm going to work there, and everything's going to be great. And it can be. I've actually lived in Europe for like 12 years, 13 years, and worked in a lot of different places. I worked in Lithuania, I worked in Portugal, I worked in Austria, I've gone all over, worked with the locals, been part of the team, had to pay the taxes and all those things. And I kind of want to go through some of the differences.
Well, you can have to pay the taxes in the USA as well.
That American workers really kind of notice when they come to work in Europe. And sometimes you'll see the jokes that, oh, they get all the vacation time, haha. Yeah, that's true. But there's also some more serious things as well, okay? And I want to start with the one that people talk about the most. You have so much more time off when you work in Europe than when you work in the US. And I'm not just talking...
I think legally, the vacation times are different, right?
The vacation time they give you, I'm talking about just normal holidays they give you off, which is really nice because you can have a much better work-life balance when you're in Europe than in the US, okay? Because you just have more time to be you. You have more time to be with your family. You have more time
to live your life, basically.
To exist on your own without just having work be everything. And that's one of those nice things to it. So I think that's...
As it should be. Your life shouldn't be your work.
Probably the biggest thing that people notice is just that amount of free time you do have. Because another thing that Americans notice when they come to Europe is work stops when work stops. If work is 9 to 5, you work 9 to 5. You can be mid-sentence, it's 5 o'clock, we're out. And no one holds it against you. There's no like, oh, we need to stay in for the team. No, we're pulling all night.
And even if they don't tell you this, it's expected or sort of unspoken.
Night or tonight, we need you to work an extra 10 hours this weekend. No, that stuff doesn't happen here. Like, I mean, it can happen, but it doesn't really happen. It's much more, oh, work's over. We didn't get it done. We didn't get it done. Moving on until Monday. I got stuff to do this weekend. Bye. And that's it. There's the boundaries that are here. Like, work is not everything. You don't get defined by it, which is really kind of cool. So you're not staying late. You're not working the weekends. You're only there when the hours you're supposed to work, which is really nice.
As it should be, technically, because you have a contract. So that's how it should be.
Nice. And I will say another thing you notice is work is a bit slower because you don't have that going overtime, doing all this stuff. Things do take more time, and that's where a lot of Americans sometimes get frustrated with their European colleagues because, like, oh, can we just knock this project out and move on? Oh, why are you taking so long? Why you have a lunch break? You have a coffee break? Can we just move through?
Yeah.
And so they get
there's sort of no. We have to again. I have to live my life.
That US get that frustrated with the kind of the slow work kind of stuff, or at least I would say the not hurry up and rush kind of thing. It's like, hey, we're gonna get it done when we get it done. Don't worry about it. And
I wonder if ultimately they arrive at the same it took us the same amount of time.
That's the thing is people, they're not worrying about it. It's not like work is everything. And I think that's a big thing to mention is you are not defined by your work in Europe. In the US, it's like, I live to work. And here in Europe, it's more like I work to pay for the fantastic food. I mean, it's just part of life, but that's not my life. Like, I honestly can say, like, when I did my PhD and master's and stuff, when I did it in Europe, when I look back on it, I don't think of it like I did my PhD in Portugal. It was, oh, I lived in Lisbon. Like, it was a life, and you had that separation, and you're not...
It's true. I think it's nice that he's saying this, because it is quite different to sort of say, I lived here, or no, I did my PhD here, or I got my degree here. Those are two different things.
Defined by it, and that's one of those things that's really nice, is that you can be you. Like, that's one of the things I really loved about working here. But one of the things that you'll notice that you might not like when you do work in Europe is you're not really truly friends with your coworkers. Now, you can be friendly with your coworkers and you'll...
Well, I think sometimes in the US that happens as well. You don't have to like everyone, and not everyone has to like you back.
Probably more likely to go get drinks on a Friday after work with people, but making that close friendship bond, it's not as much there here in Europe because a lot of people, they live and work in the city they grew up in. So they have friends since they were little kids. They're still friends with their buddy from kindergarten, first grade when they're...
They don't need new friends. I already have my friends. Get out of here.
50 years old, 60 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old, whatever. And therefore, you as a foreigner coming in, it's hard to get into a friendship circle because they already have their friends. And that's why sometimes expats end up leaving destinations that are super cool because
it can be pretty lonely, I think.
They're lonely. You live in a city with millions of people and you don't have friends. And it is really tough. That's
And you're looking all around you, and everyone else already has their own group, basically.
why I'm saying sometimes it's easier if you're going to be an expat in a place to be an expat in a Paris, a London, a Milan, a Berlin, where a lot of people have come and moved to, but not just international expats coming there, but also people from all over Italy move to Milan. People from all over Germany move to Berlin.
Okay, that's
so they're
good.
looking for
Good
friends
advice.
as well. So it's a little bit easier to make friends. But that is one of those things is you might have it that you're not really super friends with your colleagues. And some of them you'll still call Herr Wolters after you've been working with them for 30 years. You're still Herr Wolters and not even on a first name sometimes. So do be aware of that.
Not even on first name basis? Okay, that's crazy. I've known you for 30 years.
No, it's not always the case. You can make friends, but I think it is one
It's
of those
harder.
things that's important to mention because finding that good friend base when you first move abroad is really important so you have that social connection. Now, another thing that I will definitely tell you is true is if you come and work in Europe, you do not make anywhere near the same amount of money as you do in the US. Like, that's why a lot of Europeans like going to the US because they make a lot of money. They can get more stuff. And so you
But I think ultimately what matters is that the amount that you're earning covers your expenses. I think that's ultimately what you should focus on.
do have that. And so when you think about it, maybe that's something when you think about your retirement, you're thinking about, hey, what am I going to do in the future? You have to think about those things. That's why when I have students like, oh, Mark, I want to go work in Europe. Like, all right, well, do you have college loans? Because you still have to pay them off. And you might make as much money to pay it off as fast as you do in the US.
Okay,
They're
good
like,
point.
yeah, but in Europe, we don't pay for our education. So it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, that's why there's a little bit of difference. But the pay gap is a real thing. Like between the
He makes an excellent point because it's true. You're earning less, but you have less expenses, so it doesn't matter.
U.S. and the EU. I mean, I won't lie to you. Like some places you do get paid better. Switzerland, Germany, England, you get paid really well. Like those
Those
are
are very
like okay,
expensive.
comparable. You're doing okay, but go work in Portugal. Go work in Eastern Europe. Like the money is literally like a fraction of what you make in the U.S. So that's one thing I think is important to mention. However, you do get more with your money when you live in Europe, when you
Okay.
work in Europe, because you do have more benefits. Maybe you get paid
And again, I think that's ultimately what matters to you.
a 13th month out of the year, or sometimes a 14th month out of the year. So those there, maybe you get credits for childcare, or you get credits for transportation allowances. So there's a little bit more like freebies in Europe that they give with you versus just look, a
Well, technically, I think you're paying with your taxes, but sure, it's free.
pizza party, thanks boss, that you get in the US.
Yeah.
And kind of looking at things in general. I know when I worked in Europe, I made less money than I did when I worked in the US, but I will say life in Europe is cheaper. I mean,
Great.
existing, loving life is just cheaper in Europe than it is in the US. I mean, that's why I tell people all the time, if you're going to go on vacation, once you get to Europe, it is cheaper to enjoy Europe than it is to enjoy, the US. I mean, I'm here in Torino, which is a relatively expensive city in Italy, and it's still cheaper than going to Orlando for me. Accommodation, going out to eat, it's better than there, right? And so
That's insane to me because I would have thought, again, this is a very fancy place and it's Europe.
think about that. It's like, yeah, I don't make as much, but I don't need as much money as well because you are more in the city and more things are going on, right? And that's why it's important to mention your transportation to work is a lot different. It's not a car-based society in Europe. You are switching to public transportation.
I think that must be wild to adjust.
Now, if you worked in the big city in the U.S., probably you might already use the L in Chicago or the trains, in New York. But public transportation isn't a thing in the U.S. And when you come to Europe, it becomes integrated into your thing. So you're learning when I need to take the bus. When does that metro go by? I remember when I lived in Berlin, I knew exactly where my S-Bahns were going. And I'm like, I gotta get up that escalator. Like, it's definitely different than, I gotta sit in the traffic jam
for
to
2
get to
hours.
work. Now, don't get me wrong. You can get a car, and believe me, you drive in Europe, you're going to be in a traffic jam every day because there's not a lot of space. But also, just to get into work is a different experience. And you'll notice there's a reason why in the U.S. our
also
cars
San
have nice
Francisco.
cup holders and really good stereo systems because we sit in our cars all the time. We're drinking on our way. Whereas here in Europe, it's a shorter commute, but also with the crazy drivers and so many more packed things, you don't have time to change the channel. You don't have time to focus on what you're driving. Now, another money thing you'll notice is a bit different is taxes. Yeah, you're going to pay a lot
Taxes
more
suck.
taxes when you are here in Europe than you are in the U.S. And
But I think you get more benefits, so
In general, I'm just going to say that if you're making decent money, a lot more comes out, especially if you're going like to Sweden or Norway, Finland. Like taxes do get a bit higher, so that's one of those things you'll notice it in your check that a lot more is missing when you're working in Europe. But you do get more stuff with it, so that's one of those things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I do have relatively cheap healthcare or free public healthcare. Yeah, maybe the NHS isn't the greatest, but it's included with living here, so I guess that's okay. But I will say, like,
I think all evens out at the end, I would assume.
like for the things you're not gonna like, the biggest one that Americans like have a tough time adjusting
But of course, it's going to be quite a shock. I think the minute you get, I pay taxes how much?
to is European bureaucracy. Like, I know we've got the DMV in the US, and that's our
Yeah.
one example of like annoying bureaucracy, but oh my gosh, try
quite a
to
thing,
get
right?
internet at your house. Try, if you're in France, try to schedule a pickup of that Amazon package with a delivery driver.
Why?
It's insane.
Why?
Right? The levels of bureaucracy, the level of things you have to go through, the hoops you jump through, the forms you sign, the stamps you need. Oh, and a lot of it's these catch-22s. Like, oh, hey, I need to get an apartment, but important to get in. But
Oh, it's all the, yeah, you need to get an apartment, but you need to get, I know, references, but in order to get the references, you need something else. In order for you to get that, you need something else, and it's constantly in a loop.
in order to get an apartment, I need a bank account. But in order to get a bank account, I need an apartment where I have an address. Ugh. The bureaucracies here are such next level that for Americans, they get very frustrated with it. No, another thing I think is important
But don't locals also get frustrated with this?
to mention about your workplace actually here in Europe is don't expect everyone to fall in line with the boss. Like, the boss isn't necessarily God. Now, some parts of
okay.
Europe, the boss is kind of like a godlike figure, but
Oh my,
in
okay.
general, you have a lot more discussion, a lot more consensus at work than in the US, where it's kind of like, well, the
So
boss
collaborative process?
boss says this, so why are we even debating it? Here, you do have that open debate. And for some Americans, they're like, oh my gosh, he's talking back to the boss. What are you doing? You're going to get fired. No,
Yeah.
you have much more discussion that's here. And the thing, one of the
Oh,
reasons why
that's
you
nice.
have that is
I wonder if that's in all countries. It's sort of that's the work culture in Europe.
another
You
difference
know?
is you don't worry about getting fired in Europe like you do in the US. Like, I
Really?
think I do a great job where I teach, but every year I'm still worried that I'm not going to get asked to come back the next year. I mean, it's very much a worrisome thing. Like, you have the
Yeah.
at-will work environment at the US that you never know, right? Whereas in Europe, you have a lot more protections. Like, you're not worried that you're going to get fired because your boss had a bad day, because your union is there for you, or there's protections by law that if you
Okay.
do get fired, they have to pay you for a year or two or something like that. Like,
Oh, okay, so it's more protected for the workers, as it should be.
those kind of things make a difference. Mothers, they're not worried about having kids because they have protection for maternity leave, and they get paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave. I mean, those kind of things make a difference, so you do feel more comfortable, like you can share your true feelings about a project. That, hey, what do we need to do? And so you have a
Yeah, I think it brings honesty.
different
If
mentality.
I'm not worried about getting fired, yeah, sure, I'm going to bring my honest opinion to the table.
And also, I think another difference is the mentality of the workforce. It's not as much like grind and the hustle and I need my side hustle kind of stuff like you have in the US. It's much more of that laid back attitude, that laissez-faire attitude when it comes to work. And then I want to mention one thing that I did notice when I worked in Europe is you're not going to have as much diversity in your workforce here in Europe as you do in the
Oh.
US. Just because Europe in general, like you're in Italy, it's full of Italians. So there's a lot more Italians, a lot less diversity in the workers than you have in the US, which is a melting pot of places. Now, if
Yeah.
you go to like bigger cities, yeah, if you're in Milan,
But in a way, I think that's crazy because I would assume, well, doesn't Europe get a lot of people as well? So that's wild.
or Paris or London, you're gonna have more of that. Like, the UK is much more diversity.
Oh, in the
France
big
is much
cities,
more
yeah.
diversity. But that's one of those things when you work, you'll notice that there's not a lot of diversity sometimes in your workplace when you're here in Europe. So if you've been an expat working in Europe, tell us, where have you worked? What was your experience? And what are some of the differences that you had? And don't worry, I'm going to do a video on this about what Europeans find strange about working in the US. Like, boss, why do I have to be here 2 hours early and stay 2 hours late? Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well. Anyway, I wish you all the best. I'll say bye from here in Torino. And also, I loved working abroad. I mean, literally, it was like 10, 15 years, okay? So I would definitely do it again because I loved working in Europe. And I wish you all the best. Au revoir, or tschüss, or auf Wiedersehen, or arrivederci, or ciao, or whatever.
So many
Whichever
things.
bye you want in Europe, go ahead and say it. Bye. It's been a long day.
This is very interesting. I think the ultimately would, because I think there's obviously going to be a huge culture shock. I think for Americans, the work culture is obviously very different. Like they mentioned, yes, you have this sort of, the culture is more relaxed in a way, but I think ultimately that's what I mentioned, the whole thing. I think everything evens out at the end. Because even though, oh, everything's more relaxed. Yes, it's more relaxed. But so that's a good thing, obviously, because you don't constantly have the sort of grind mindset, or my work should be my life and I'm at the office from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. It's not like that. However, you're going to earn a little bit less. So, okay, I earn less money. So in a way, it's sort of, yeah, you know, it's a balance. I think as all things, it's not all perfect. You get some things, there are advantages and disadvantages to everything. But I think in a way, if you really do put it like this, is, oh, again, you can really do see it reflected. I think, again, ultimately, I don't think it matters that much because, again, I just mentioned everything I think evens out in the end. It's a sort of a zero-sum game, except you're kind of earning more. As in, again, maybe I'm not earning more, but like they said, the food's cheaper, for instance, and you can sort of get a better lifestyle for the money that you kind of earn. So what would I care about earning a lot of money if I can comfortably live with what I'm earning, for instance? And I think that lies a huge difference, because I think in the US, I think the culture seems to be, and I think obviously each person is different, but I think most people, I think sort of, again, sort of in general, the culture is more, you have to have more money and more money and more money and more money. But, you know, does it really make you happy, or does it really, is that going to make you achieve the life that you want to achieve, or does the money that you're earning makes you, or that you want to earn, allows you to live your life sort of good and comfortable? I think, well, sometimes, again, maybe it depends on people who just want to be millionaires because they want to be millionaires. And yes, obviously you always want to live better. You want to have a better quality of life. But again, everyone's not going to be a millionaire. That's not going to be a thing. But I think the American dream exists for a reason, and I think that's why a lot of people are constantly in this sort of, that sort of grind. We have to grind, because the dream is there. Of, oh yeah, I have to earn more money. I have to earn more money and earn more money. But ultimately, I think sometimes you're going to have to take a stand and stop and say, okay, but where am I going to get all this money? Okay, I'm earning all this money. Am I actually living fine? Am I living correctly? Am I happy? And I think ultimately that's, I think, where you should ask yourself. Obviously, if the answer is yes, great. I think USA seems to be the perfect sort of workplace for you. But if the answer is no, well, yeah, maybe you should live in Europe. And otherwise, I think for Europeans, it's the same. If this is not working for you, and if you feel, you know what, yeah, maybe again it's more chill, and maybe I'm earning a little bit less, but everything else is cheaper, but no, I just want to accumulate more money, well, yeah, you should move to the US. So you should do an exchange. But I think, yes, I don't think neither of these things I saw them as bad. I think it's just different. And it's just going to depend on what you're looking in your life. I think sometimes there's also a thing about, oh, the grass always looks greener on the other side. So I think it's hard to be the judge, because sometimes I think, oh, again, you're always going to see the others as living better than you. But those others are probably sort of a little bit jealous of what you are also getting in return. So, you know, again, you really do have to take a hard, long look at yourself and maybe your job and see, you know what? Do I want to change this? Do I want to change my life? And I think the other thing that obviously doesn't have anything to do with this is, I think the culture of the boss and the sort of, oh, I'm being fired, you know, you're constantly in the fear of getting fired. Obviously, I think those are beyond sort of, oh, asking yourself, am I happy here? Am I working too hard? I think those kind of things are just, again, maybe it has to do with laws and protection to the workers, which I do think they should change, because people deserve to have, that's not really a good quality of life if you feel that like your job is not secure. That's not really a good way to live. But that whole thing of constantly living in fear of your boss, that's not really a good way to live either. So I really do like how Europe does it. And apparently, again, I don't know if this is in all countries, but I really do think I prefer that, as in it's more of a process of, let's see where this takes us, instead of just I'm afraid of speaking up just because I'm afraid I'm going to get fired, because I am afraid of insulting my boss or coming across as, oh, I don't want to offend anyone. But I think ultimately you maybe get the best sort of projects and the best work is done through collaboration. So I really do think I gotta hand it to Europe. I think that's a little bit better. But, you know, that's just me. That's probably just a personal opinion. But ultimately, again, it's just, they all do this a little bit different. And it just, again, and they just said it, but again, they all have their other things. As in, for instance, the bureaucracy, I think, would be the greatest disadvantage of the whole European thing. And the US, even though, again, it has bureaucracy, to me, it is a lot. But apparently in Europe it's more. So, oh my god, okay, that would be a nightmare probably situation. As in, you get the whole loop of you need this, but in order to get this, you need that. And again, that would be probably, if I had to change something, it would probably be that. And if I had to change something about the American system, it would probably be again about the bosses and the job insecurity. But again, I would have to think about it. But just looking at this video, I think those would be the two things that I would switch, and then you have a perfect system for each and every one of them. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.